Welcome back to the Behavior Code. I'm Maria,
And I'm Gabriel.
and today we're talking about something I think everyone has experienced, but maybe hasn't put a name to.
Right. We're talking about those people, the ones who are just so nice, almost too nice.
Exactly. The person at work who brings everyone donuts, the friend who showers you with compliments, the family member who is always agreeable. They seem perfect, right?
The perfect colleague, the perfect friend. But sometimes you walk away from an interaction with them and just feel off. You can't explain it. It's like an emotional static in the air.
Emotional static. I like that. Because that's what it is. And here's the hook for today's episode, the pattern interrupt we want to plant in your mind. What if some of the nicest people you know don't actually like you? Or the neighbor who always waves and says, let's get together soon, but never means it? Or that one relative who says, I love you, but follows it with a critical comment about your life choices?
Whoa, okay, straight for the jugular.
I mean, think about it. What if that niceness isn't genuine kindness? What if it's a performance, a tool they're using for social benefit or even for control?
That's a heavy thought because we're taught to value niceness, to see it as a virtue, but you're saying it can be a mask.
It can be a very effective mask. Kindness is about genuine empathy and a desire for connection. Niceness can be about managing perceptions. It's about image. It's about making sure everyone sees you as the good guy.
Right. So you're not getting their authentic self, you're getting their representative, their public relations manager.
Yes, and that's why it feels so strange. Your gut is picking up on the mismatch between the performance and, well, the lack of anything real underneath. Over the next half hour, we're going to decode that feeling. We're going to give you the red flags, the psychology behind it, and most importantly, how to deal with it without causing a scene.
This is going to be a big one. I can feel it. Let's dive in. Okay, so if we're trying to tell the difference between genuine kindness and let's call it performative niceness, what are the first signs? What are the red flags we usually miss?
The first one, and this is a big one for me, is just constant, over the top agreeableness. They agree with everything you say.
Oh, yeah, the bobblehead.
The bobblehead, exactly. You could say, I think the sky should be green. And they'd be like, you know what? I can totally see that. That's such an interesting perspective.
Right, there's no friction, no pushback. And at first, it feels great. It's like, wow, this person just gets me. But after a while, you realize they get everyone. They don't have a perspective of their own, or they're just not willing to show it. It's like they're a social chameleon, changing their colors to blend in with whoever they're talking to. Their goal isn't to connect, it's to be liked.
Because disagreement is a risk. It risks their image as the nice, easygoing person. Genuine connection requires a little bit of healthy friction. It requires authenticity.
Totally. That leads to the second red flag, which is selective kindness. And it goes deeper than just avoiding risk. This constant agreement can also be a way of subtly controlling their relationship. By creating a space with no conflict, they also create a space with no real depth. It keeps things on their preferred surface level.
Tell me more.
They're incredibly nice, but only to people who have something they want, or people who are watching. They'll be an angel to the boss, but then you see them being dismissive or rude to the waiter or the janitor or someone they perceive as unimportant.
Yes, the curtain drops for a second. It's like their niceness is a currency, and they only spend it where they think they'll get a return on investment. It's not a universal trait, it's a targeted strategy.
That's it, it's strategic. And speaking of strategy, what about passive aggression, the nice person's weapon of choice?
Oh, the absolute worst. It's the sugar-coated insult, the compliment with a hook.
The compliment with a hook. What's an example of that?
It's like, oh, I love your dress. It's so brave of you to wear such a bold pattern. Or, wow, your presentation was so good. I'm surprised you weren't more nervous.
Right, it's got that little twist of the knife at the end. It sounds like a compliment on the surface, so if you get upset, you look like the crazy one.
You're the one who's too sensitive. It's designed to give them plausible deniability. What? I was just being nice. It's a way to express negativity or jealousy without ever having to own it.
And that ties into the last big red flag, right? The emotional inconsistency.
The hot and cold. One day you're their best friend. They're showering you with attention, telling you secrets. And the next day it's chilly, distant. You feel like you did something wrong, but you have no idea what.
Yeah, and you're left scrambling, trying to figure out what you did to lose their favor, which puts them right back in control.
Exactly. That inconsistency keeps you on your toes, always seeking their approval. It's a subtle power play, and it's exhausting. If you're constantly feeling confused by someone's behavior, even if they're nice, that's a huge sign that something is off.
Okay, so we have overagreeing, selective kindness, passive aggression, and emotional inconsistency. These are some pretty clear signs. But why? Why do people do this? What's going on in their head? There's one more I want to add to the list, and it's a sneaky one. Gossip that's disguised as concern.
That's the million-dollar question, and it's what we're tackling right after this. Oh, that's a good one. How does that sound in the wild? All right, so we've laid out the red flags of the fake nice person, but to really understand it, we have to look under the hood. What is the psychological engine driving this behavior?
It sounds like, hey, I just want to check in on you. I heard about the trouble you're having with that project, and I'm just so worried. Is there anything I can do? But they're the one who told everyone you were having trouble in the first place. And it's not always simple, right? It's not just they're a bad person. It's often way more complex than that.
They turn your own vulnerability against you while positioning themselves as a savior. It's a way to create a narrative where they are the hero, coming to your rescue, when in fact, they lit the fire. Totally, and a lot of it stems from a place of fear. The most basic reason is it's a social survival strategy. For some people, being anything other than nice feels dangerous.
Dangerous how?
Like, maybe they grew up in a home where expressing a negative opinion or having a need led to punishment or rejection. So they learned to be safe, to be loved, I must be pleasant at all times. I must be agreeable. It's a learned behavior, a kind of emotional armor.
That makes sense. It's a form of conflict avoidance. If I'm always nice, no one can ever be mad at me. If I agree with everyone, I'll never get into an argument.
Exactly. The problem is it stifles any real connection. You can't have a real relationship with someone who is terrified of conflict, because conflict, or at least the potential for it, is part of any authentic human interaction.
Right, so that's one side of it, the fear-based conflict avoidant type. What's another driver?
The next level up, I think, is approval addiction. This isn't just about avoiding conflict, it's about actively seeking validation. Their self-worth is completely outsourced.
Outsourced.
Yeah, it's dependent on what other people think of them. They need to be seen as the nice guy, the helpful woman, the supportive friend. It's not just a preference, it's a core need. So their niceness is a performance to get that constant stream of validation. Look how good I am, please like me.
So they're not really being nice to you, they're using you as a mirror. They want to see a good reflection of themselves.
Perfectly put. You are a source of narcissistic supply, to use the clinical term. And that brings us to the more manipulative end of the spectrum.
Covert narcissism traits.
Now, we're not diagnosing anyone here, let's be clear. But some of these behaviors overlap significantly with covert narcissism. Unlike an overt narcissist who is obviously arrogant, a covert narcissist uses niceness as a tool for manipulation and control.
How does that work?
Their niceness creates a debt. They do you a favor you didn't ask for, they give you a gift that feels a little too much, they're always there to help. But it's not free. There's an expectation of reciprocation, of loyalty, of you owing them.
So the kindness is transactional.
Highly transactional. And if you don't pay them back with the attention or admiration they crave, that's when the mask slips. The passive aggression comes out. The guilt trips start. They'll say something like, well, after everything I've done for you, I just thought.
Oof, yeah, I've heard that one before. It traps you.
It really does. And all of this, from the conflict avoidance to the narcissism, it's all a form of what sociologists call impression management.
Impression management. Sounds like a corporate PR term.
It basically is. It's the conscious or subconscious process of trying to influence the perceptions of other people about a person, object, or event. We all do it to some extent, right? You act a certain way in a job interview.
Sure.
But with fake nice people, it's their entire mode of operating. They aren't just managing an impression for a specific situation, they are constantly managing their brand as a good, nice person. And that brand is more important to them than authentic connection.
Wow, so you're interacting with a brand, not a person. When you put it like that, it explains why it feels so hollow.
Exactly. There's no one home. It's just a billboard that says, I'm nice.
So, if this is a psychology driving them, they're using this niceness as a tool. What are some of the specific tactics, the moves they use to manipulate situations while still looking like the good guy? But where's the line? We all engage in a little impression management. It's called being polite, right? You don't tell your boss their new haircut is awful. Is that fake niceness?
That's a great question because the tactics are incredibly subtle. Let's get into that.
Okay, so we're talking about manipulation tactics hidden inside a cloak of niceness. This feels kind of insidious.
It is because it's designed to be hard to spot and even harder to call out. The first big one is what I call guilt-based kindness.
Guilt-based kindness.
Yeah, it's the I'll do this nice thing for you, so now you feel too guilty to say no to me later. It's that person who insists on paying for your coffee or helps you with a project you didn't ask for help with.
Right.
And then a week later, they ask for a favor that's way bigger, something you're uncomfortable with, but you feel obligated. You think, well, they were so nice to me, I can't say no.
They've preloaded the obligation. It's a strategic move to make you feel indebted.
Precisely. It short circuits your ability to set a boundary. Very effective, very manipulative.
Okay, what's another one?
A huge one is reputation building. This is where their niceness is all about public perception. They want to be known as the saint, the savior, the most helpful person in the office.
So they're building social capital.
Exactly, and they do this so that if a conflict ever arises between you and them, they've already won in the court of public opinion.
Who's everyone going to believe? The person who brings donuts every Friday, or you, the person who suddenly has a problem with them?
You're instantly cast as the villain. They'll say things to others like, I don't know what's wrong with Maria, I've been nothing but nice to her. They use their public reputation as a shield to deflect any accountability.
That is genius in a terrifying way. It isolates you.
Completely. And that leads to the next tactic, which is a classic triangulation.
Bringing a third person into the dynamic.
The fake nice person will rarely address a conflict with you directly. That's too confrontational. Instead, they'll go to a mutual friend or a coworker and say something like, hey, I'm really worried about Gabriel. He seems a bit stressed lately. Did I do something to upset him?
So now the other person comes to me saying, hey, what's your problem with so-and-so? They're so worried about you.
Yes, they've now positioned themselves as the caring, concerned party and you as the mysterious, difficult one. They use other people as messengers to deliver their disapproval or to gather information. It avoids direct conflict while still letting them control the narrative.
So they're basically creating little armies of people who see them as the good guy.
That's a perfect way to put it. Another tactic, and this one is so subtle it's hard to catch, is subtle undermining. This often comes in the form of, again, a compliment.
The compliment with a hook we talked about earlier.
Exactly, but it can also be through helpful advice. Let's say you're excited about a new project. They'll say, that's amazing, I'm so happy for you. Just be careful, okay? I know someone who tried that and it was really, really difficult for them. I just don't want to see you get hurt.
Wow, so on the surface, it's, I'm concerned for you. But what they're actually doing is planting a seed of doubt and anxiety. They're deflating your excitement under the guise of caring.
You got it. It's a way to keep you small, to keep you from outshining them without ever looking like they're anything but supportive.
And the last piece of this puzzle has to be conditional support, right?
Oh, absolutely. Their support, their friendship, their niceness is entirely conditional on you behaving in a way that benefits them.
So as long as you're doing what they want, you get the A plus best friend treatment.
The best friend treatment. They love you. But the moment you set a boundary, disagree with them, or do something that doesn't align with their agenda, the niceness vanishes. You get the cold shoulder, the passive aggression, the guilt trips.
Though their love is just a reward for compliance.
It's a tool for control. It keeps you performing for their approval. It's the ultimate I'll be nice to you if, and that's not kindness. It's a threat.
And these tactics they're really hard to see when you're in the middle of them. It all feels so normal. So how do we get better at spotting it in the moment? What are the dead giveaways that what we're seeing is a performance?
Okay, so we've talked about the psychology and the tactics. Now for the practical part. How do we spot this in real time? How do we trust our gut? The biggest, most reliable indicator is a mismatch between their words and their actions.
Say more about that.
They say all the right things. I'm always here for you. You can count on me. Teamwork makes the dream work. Their language is a perfect Hallmark card.
Right.
But when it comes time to actually act, they're nowhere to be found. You need help moving? Oh, they'd love to, but something suddenly came up. A deadline is looming? They offer moral support, but don't actually do any of the work. Their words promise everything, but their actions deliver nothing.
So you have to stop listening to what they say and start watching what they do.
100%. Consistent behavior is the truth teller. Words are cheap. Another huge tell is the energy shift depending on the audience.
Ooh, the chameleon.
The chameleon. You see them with the boss and they are one person, deferential, complimentary, full of great ideas. Then they're with their subordinates and they're a totally different person, maybe a little more condescending, a little more demanding. Then they're with their friends and it's another persona entirely.
They're mirroring what they think each specific audience wants to see.
Exactly. And what that tells you is that there's no stable, authentic core. You're never getting the real person because they might not even know who the real person is anymore. They're just a collection of masks. Watch how they treat people they have nothing to gain from. That's who they really are.
That is such a powerful litmus test, the waiter test.
It's the ultimate test. Next up, and this is a hard one to accept, is a complete lack of accountability. A genuinely kind person can admit when they're wrong. They can say, I'm sorry, I messed up.
Right, it's a sign of maturity.
But the performatively nice person cannot. It would shatter their image of being the good guy. So if you bring up an issue, something they did that hurt you, it will always be twisted back on you.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
The classic non-apology, or I think you misunderstood my intentions. Or they'll just play the victim. I can't believe you'd think that of me. I was only trying to help. They will never, ever just take responsibility.
Because their ego is too fragile to admit a flaw. The nice persona is everything.
It's their entire defense mechanism. And finally, a really subtle one. Pay attention to the depth of your conversations.
What do you mean by that?
Interactions with these people often feel very surface level. It's all pleasantries. How was your weekend? The weather is crazy, right? They talk at you, but they rarely listen. They'll ask you a question, but before you've even finished answering, they're already talking about themselves.
Because the point of the conversation isn't connection. It's just another opportunity for them to perform, to be seen as charming or a good conversationalist.
Yes, there's no real emotional intimacy. They don't share their own vulnerabilities, and they're not really interested in yours, beyond using them as a way to seem empathetic. It feels like you're talking to a TV host. It's smooth, it's polished, but it's not real.
So if we're seeing these things, the word-action mismatch, the audience-based energy shifts, the lack of accountability, the shallow interactions, our alarm bells should be ringing.
Loud and clear, your gut is screaming, this isn't real.
So the big question, what do you do? How do you respond to this person, especially if they're a coworker or family member you can't just cut out of your life, without starting a huge drama? Okay, so you've identified the fake nice person. Your gut was right. Now comes the hard part, responding. Because if you call them out, you risk looking like the bad guy, right?
Exactly. They've built their reputation perfectly for that. So the first and most important rule is you do not have to play their game. You don't have to engage on their terms. The number one tool is boundaries.
Boundaries. It's a word we hear a lot, but what does it look like in this specific context?
It means being clear, calm, and firm. When they offer that help you don't want, the kind that creates an obligation, you say, "That's so kind of you to offer, but I've got it handled." That's it. No long explanation.
So you're not rejecting them, you're just rejecting the offer. It's polite but firm.
Yes. Or when they give you the backhanded compliment, "It's so brave of you to wear that." You can just say, "Thanks," and change the subject. Or if you're feeling a little more direct, you can ask a clarifying question like, "What do you mean by brave?"
Oh, I like that. It puts the focus back on them to explain their weird phrasing. It sort of calls the bluff without being aggressive.
It does. It shows them you're paying attention. Another key is to maintain emotional neutrality. This is huge. These individuals thrive on getting an emotional reaction from you.
Right. If you get upset, they can play the victim. She's so overly sensitive.
Exactly. So when they're being inconsistent or passive aggressive, you have to try your best to become a gray rock. Be boring. Give short, factual, unemotional responses. Don't give them the drama they're looking for. They'll eventually get bored and go find someone else to play with.
That's a powerful shift in mindset. You're not trying to win or convince them of anything. You're just disengaging.
You're disengaging, and part of that is limiting their access to you. This doesn't mean you have to have a big confrontation. It just means you get busier. You don't have time for that long coffee anymore. You keep conversations shorter and more focused on the task at hand, especially at work.
So you're creating distance quietly and professionally. You're giving them less of your time and energy, which are your most valuable resources.
Precisely. And the last piece of advice, and this is for you, the person dealing with this, stop over-explaining yourself.
That's a big one.
When you set a boundary and say no, you don't owe them a 5-paragraph essay explaining why. No is a complete sentence. The more you explain, the more ammunition you give them to try and poke holes in your reasoning.
Oh, you can't make it Thursday? Well, what about Friday? You said you were busy with X, but that should be done by then.
Exactly. They will use your explanation against you. A simple, "Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it," is enough. You don't have to justify your boundaries. They are there to protect your peace, not to be debated.
So it's about being clear, being calm, limiting access, and being concise. It's not about drama, it's about self-preservation.
That's the perfect way to sum it up. It's not about changing them, you can't. It's about changing how you interact with them, so their behavior no longer has power over you.
It's taking your power back.
It is. And that leads us to our final thought for today, the big closing shift we all need to make. So we've gone deep into the world of the performatively nice. We've talked about the red flags, the psychology, the tactics, and how to respond. But I want to leave our listeners with one final important shift in perspective.
Go for it.
We need to, as a culture and as individuals, stop rewarding performance-based kindness.
What does that look like?
It means we stop being so easily impressed by charm. We stop equating nice and agreeable with good. We see someone who is overly complimentary, who is constantly agreeing with everyone, and instead of thinking, "Wow, they're so great," we should get a little curious, a little skeptical.
We should start asking, what's the data behind this? Is there a history of consistent, reliable action to back up these nice words?
That's it. Start trusting consistent behavior over fleeting charm. Trust the person who might not be the smoothest talker, but who shows up when you need them. Trust the person who is willing to have a difficult conversation with you because they respect you, rather than the person who just tells you what you want to hear.
It's about valuing authenticity over agreeableness.
Yes, real kindness is quiet, it's steady, it's reliable. It's not loud and flashy, it doesn't need an audience. Performative niceness is all about the show, it's about the image.
So the takeaway is trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And look for the proof. Look for the consistency. Behavior never lies.
Behavior never lies. That's the core of what we do here at the Behavior Code. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today.
As always, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you next week.